going to start by just giving quick background about myself and a little bit about the why IT Glue exists. I also want to just say quickly that we've also got today on the line Dave Goldie. He's our Vice President of Sales. He's based with me here in Vancouver, West Coast of Canada, and he's going to be on the line just to, in case we have questions popping up. He'll be able to help address those when we get to the Q&A section as well. So let's get into it. Freeing minds is really, if people ask me what we do at IT Glue, I say freeing minds. And the reason we say that is that information is really the core and the heart of most IT businesses. Any IT business, really, information is key. And what we found, and what most people agree with, is that the information that is necessary to run an IT business, an IT practice, is often locked in the minds of people, locked in various tools and systems, and very hard to find, very hard to educate other people on that information. So we landed on freeing minds as our core purpose. It's our reason for being at IT Glue. And the idea is that we take information, we remove it from people's heads, we put it in a central location, and make it sort of ease the burden of having that information not readily available. That being said, I'm not going to talk too much about IT Glue today. I'm going to talk more about the problem itself and the impact financially and otherwise of this information gap. So I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I'm the CEO, founder of IT Glue, as I said, based here in Canada. Before IT Glue, I've been in the MSP space for a very, very long time. I think from a industry perspective, I started a company in 2002 called Fully Managed. It's a Western Canadian MSP. I started it probably like many of you on this call. It was myself and another person, two of us. Over the course of from 2002 to 2009, we grew that business from a couple of people up to about 10, 12 people. And then from 2009 to 2016, fast forward to today, the company is very much thriving. It's got about 60 employees. I've transitioned about 3 years ago out of that business. We've got a CEO, a COO, and a senior management team that now run the business. But I'm still on the board, and so I kind of keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening in the MSP space. And truthfully, it was a lot of the inspiration for IT Glue came from my background in the MSP world. So the one thing that I learned, probably the biggest thing and the biggest takeaway for today that I learned from being in the MSP space is it's a difficult business, and so it's a particularly difficult business if you don't make money at it, because we are at the forefront of technical issues. There's a lot of variety that gets thrown at us, and the number one takeaway that I learned in taking the business, not only from say 10 people to 60 people, it wasn't all about the growth. It was more about the profit. And I realized that when I was, around 20 employees and going really, really hard on the business, but actually not making any money at the end of the day. So I'm going to touch on how we made that transformation to the point where today Fully Managed not only is running at a very high revenue rate, but also delivering the bottom line profit that I like to see as an investor around the 22–24% range. So quickly, the IT Glue story. We've had a great rise to fame, I guess, in the last couple of years. We started selling in 2013. 1 year ago today, we were probably around 10 staff, and we've grown to around 50 today. We expect to be about 100 employees by the end of 2017. And very close to 2,000 MSP and IT service provider partners globally, and around 30,000 IT professionals logging in and using IT Glue every day. So we're very proud of that. We have a large community of Autotask and AEM users in our community, so we're very happy to have a chance to talk to you a little bit more today about that. So I'm going to start with a little story, and very much ties into my MSP story. And I call it the tale of two companies. And I'll talk financially about what this means later. But let's take an example of two managed service companies or two IT service providers, both, let's say, doing about $2 million in sales. Both are in the same city. Let's call it London for the sake of this call. Both have the same number of employees. Let's call it 20. These companies exist in pretty much any market segment. And one of the fallacies that I've learned is that you can find two companies that look the same on the outside but deliver very different results. So let's just do the example of walk into one company, the company's putting $0 to the bottom line. Walk into another company, that company's putting 25% to the bottom line. There's obviously clearly something different about the two companies. And I think it's the last oversight in the IT service provider industry is the value of process and the value of why is it that process is actually the differentiating factor between those two companies. So I'm going to cover off a couple of concepts to support that. The absence of the company, by the way, when you think of this scenario, company A, MSP A, MSP B, one company is making money. The one that's not making money, it feels a little bit like this. It's chaotic. And generally the chaos, when you see the chaos, it doesn't feel great either from a staff perspective or from a client perspective. So why is there chaos? Why does one company feel chaotic and the other not? There's a whole bunch of things that go into that. There's people, process, and technology, but today I'm going to focus on the process bucket. This is a really interesting study, so probably everybody's familiar with IDC. The typical IT person spends 21% of their time, and this is quite a staggering number, so it's worth thinking about this. 21% of their time, and this is in US dollars, looking for information. So if you actually factor that into and this is actually not in the MSP world, so typically this number is a bit worse for MSPs or IT service providers where you're supporting multiple customer environments. So put a dollar figure on this number and then try to figure out why is there so much time waste? And I think you're going to find that it comes back to the information gap. Typically it's coming back to the inability for a new staff member to get up to speed on the environment in total, or someone who's never seen an environment to come in, step in, and be productive in that environment quickly. Supported by Microsoft as well. Eric Ligman was a senior VP at Microsoft. IT workers are spending 20% of their time looking for information. If you do the math on what this costs you, and there's a really important concept here that's not just the hard labor associated with the information gap, which is, yes, you're paying for that time. 20% of the time, you're paying someone to basically sit there and look for information. But the key factor is what would they be doing with that 20% of their time if they hadn't been wasting it? And the answer is they would have been doing more service work or they would have been doing more billable work. And so when you factor in the opportunity cost, you get some fairly staggering numbers that start to pop out from this. There was a guy, Vern Harnish, that probably around 10, 11 years ago, and hopefully everybody knows Vern Harnish. He's the author of the Rockefeller Habits and a very well-respected thought leader in business in general. He said this at a business event, a non-IT business event that I was at. The first company that embraces lean in any industry will dominate their peers. Lean is basically the process of removing waste out of a business. So they estimate the Toyota production system is sort of the foundation for lean. In that system, they estimate that about 60%, 60% of the time, a typical business is doing work that doesn't actually value the customer. And that's how lean defines waste, is you're doing work that doesn't value the customer. And so this had a profound impact on me, and actually was one of the reasons I actually started IT Glue. Is I thought this is not right. We need to find a way to help businesses be lean and not spend unnecessary time on things that are not meaningful. If you put it into numbers for a typical IT provider, and I apologize, this is not in pounds, and most of you are probably operating in pounds, but it's the same. I would just replace the symbol. A 10-person company will waste approximately, using these same numbers, $200,000 every year in productivity due to information lock, or information loss, or information inaccessibility. So this is partly the hard cost, as I alluded to, and partly the opportunity cost. And so this is quite staggering. It's $20,000 per employee per year. And so how do we battle this? This is a real issue. I want you to, if you have a few minutes, you don't need to give us your contact info, but you can go to this waste calculator that we have on our website. And it helps to highlight these concepts I talked about. So you punch in how many technical staff, what's their annual salary, what's the average margin that you're looking for from a IT person. So typically, you know, if you bill out at 70 pounds an hour, you want to get 35 pounds an hour in profit. And then you take the slider and estimate the actual time you are currently wasting due to bad documentation or due to information gap. And you can slide it right back to 0 if you think you're 100% efficient, or you can slide it down to 1 or 2%, and you'll see that even at the very low percentage points, it's a very, very costly issue. So we like to throw this out there as just a bit of an awareness thing. This time is being spent, and so what can we do to start to drive improvements in that area, which will effectively result in bottom line performance. The other thing I want to highlight around this topic is around the information gap and freeing minds is your nightmare IT guy. So Jason Bourne, in this case, is the epitome of the person that is a risk to your business. So he's running around, he's got all the information about all of your clients in his head, and he's struck by a bus, or he wins the lottery, or he moves to Majorca, whatever the case may be. This is another source of real pain for IT business owners, because this information really should be a company asset. And when it stops becoming a company asset, or when it never starts becoming a company asset, then you're sort of beholden to the staff that have that information in their head. So what I found in running and growing our MSP to a very large size is that once you can get this concept away from the business, where information is a company asset, it very much changes the culture of the business. It becomes more collaborative. People are employed not because of the information that they have, but because they're great for your company. And I think this is a bit of a transition in the IT service industry, where the information hostage situation is slowly ceasing to be acceptable. So the other place that this issue rears its ugly head is around ambiguity, and ambiguity pops up frequently in the IT service provider space, because if you have person A and person B, Jim and Sally, and Sally doesn't know anything about Jim's clients and vice versa, it creates a lot of ambiguity. And when a customer experiences that ambiguity, it doesn't feel very good to them. The staff don't enjoy the ambiguity, and it again leads to that chaos situation that I mentioned. So the more we can remove ambiguity from an IT service ecosystem, the more freed everybody feels, and the more we can work on profit-generating activities. Anybody's familiar with Paul Dipple? He's a fantastic MSP financials expert, and he talks about a concept called operational maturity level. In fact, we use this almost in every facet of our MSP business to score ourselves. So how mature are we from a process perspective? How mature are we from a technology perspective? How mature is each one of our customers as compared to our operational maturity standard for a ideal customer? And what we found was we had to get to beyond level 2. So level 1 is a bit like a firefight. Level 2 is sort of a bit chaotic. Level 3 is stable. Then we move up to level 4, where you start to be able to innovate and create new products and actually deliver more value to your customers. So we use this concept extensively around how do we get to a point where we're innovating. The other thing that, touching on the chaos and lack of innovation, is the causes, the sort of social causes of chaos. And these are things that I think a lot of people forget exist in an IT business. And they're exacerbated by information gap. So, when people are inefficient, when people can't find the information they're looking for, they're tired, they're stressed, they're working too hard, it doesn't feel good to staff, and it's very hard to maintain it. It's hard enough to maintain a great company culture in an IT support business without these elements exacerbating it. And of course, we land on this, and if you're in a fixed fee IT service provider market, when you start working with a new customer, they say everything is broken. What am I paying you for? And then as soon as you take all the steps necessary to stabilize their IT environment and make it all run beautifully, of course, the next thing they say to you is, nothing is broken. What am I paying you for? So as we start evolving down this the chain and increasing the maturity of our businesses, we started realizing we had to deliver more value in different ways. It wasn't around break fix. It wasn't something broke and we fixed it and that's why you feel value. We started to add value around VCIO and new services that we could layer in, like advanced antivirus or security services or whatever the case may be, new services that add value. And the biggest one, I think, to consider as an MSP or an IT provider is this one. Innovation is impossible when you're in a chaotic situation. So, you know, I see a lot of MSPs that think, well, I want to add a brand new service into my stack and I want to sort of sell this product to all my customers. The first step is to get that stability in place, because you need to have a stable environment with happy customers. And by the way, happy customers are generally happy if they're getting a reliable service level. Then you can reflect and start to build and innovate and create services that are more valuable to those customers over time. And the question, this actually came from one of my mentors, which was, you know, we're in business for a reason. And what is the reason? You know, why are we here? And are we here by default or are we here by design? And that's a great question to ask, and I continue to ask it. You know, in any facet of the business, this is how our sales team is put together. Is this by default or is this by design? And the more we can move to everything by design, the more we can standardize and simplify and plan for these things, the better the business feels. This one is, I'm not even going to say anything about this. This is just a bit of a joke, but there isn't an app that can help you, or is there? So I want to just quickly touch on a couple things that I've identified that, and nothing new, that make an IT business profitable and successful, and here are the three. So people, process, technology. In really all of these three areas need to be working properly, and it's very complex to get all three working. And they're all kind of related. So as an example, I'll give an example. Like on the people side, obviously we want to attract and retain great people. But if we have a chaotic experience for those people and we can't pay those people properly because maybe our technology, the third bucket, is poor, it's very difficult to pay the people properly, very difficult to retain the people. So I'll touch very quickly on the technology stack, very relevant since we're on a call with Autotask today. Having the best technology in the business is something that I've learned is absolutely critical, and it's in every area, whether it's backup, whether it's your endpoint management, whether it's your PSA, whether it's the operating systems that you support, and so on and so forth. Having all of that stack identified, and if you have 100 customers, as much as you can standardizing across those 100 customers, the more standardized it is, the easier it is to train people to support, and the more you can do with less people. So that's a key factor on the wedge of profit. The one that I think is often left, and it's probably by design, I've put it here as the largest cog, is process. And I think process has been the afterthought in the IT space, but process is really the differentiating factor in my mind. If everybody on this call is using Autotask, and everybody on this call is using AEM, and everybody on this call is using antivirus X, what makes one of you more profitable than the other? And process is the key. And examples of this, what good process can do for you is allows you to do things both faster and cheaper. How do you do it faster? By defining a process. You know, obviously having a standardized technology stack, you can have the same people doing the task faster because it's well documented. Cheaper is probably the one that I would say it's the #1 thing that allowed our MSP to be very, very profitable. We figured out how to use lower cost labor to do the same work. And in order to do that, we had to, so an example, we had to pick a firewall platform. It doesn't matter which one it is, but we had to pick one because we realized that we couldn't hire a young, inspired young tech out of school and say, we need you to learn how to support 5 or 6 different firewalls, as well as the backup, as well as the workstations, as well as everything else. So we said, in our case, we picked Meraki. Doesn't matter what you pick SonicWall, pick X, Y, Z. And we said, that's the only one we're going to support. And so then we created procedures for how to install it, how to update it, how to move it, how to do failover, how to apply a traffic shaping policy, whatever the case may be. As a result of that, and as a result of those processes being built, we could now take a junior tech and say, someone has asked us to block YouTube on the firewall. And we didn't have to go to the level 3 highly paid engineer to do that task. We were able to take that task and give it to literally anyone in the business. So the key factor for being profitable is being able to take that, take those tasks and basically outsource them to lower cost resources, even inside the business, or if you so choose, outside the business, which is another key thing you can do with good processes. You can actually begin to look at those types of relationships. Are there pieces of this that I could outsource that aren't customer facing that would allow me to be more profitable? And so those kind of decisions become possible. So going back to the company A and company B scenario, I want to just show you both companies. So this is company A, and this is a very typical MSP doing $2 million in sales, putting $500,000, so 25% of the bottom line, very similar to my MSP at a smaller size. What you're going to see when I go to company B, the difference is in the cost of goods sold. So for an MSP business, and this is an MSP business, the biggest cost is obviously labor, and cost of goods sold by the book for MSPs is labor. So when you flip over to company B, you're going to see one company is spending $1.2 million on labor, one company is spending $700,000 on labor. The difference, you'll notice SG&A, sales and general administration expenses are consistent, and that's because both these companies are, let's say they're both in London again, so the rent is the same, the parking is the same, lunches, the Maserati, whatever happens to go into that bucket is all the same. We end up with zero net income for company B. And as I highlighted on the last slide before this, company B has failed to figure out how to reduce their costs of delivering the service through automation, through great documentation, through great technology, and obviously great people. So it's really interesting to look at these things and say, you know what, on the surface, and I've thought this before, if I could acquire an MSP and take everything except, just take the people out, and I could make that company profitable. So it's very interesting to start thinking about this is what can be the impact financially of process. So I don't need to tell you that obviously there's a theme here. I believe strongly that process is the cure to creating that value for the business and creating that consistency and execution that is often missing from MSPs. And if you get some fear, and that's one of the things we get questions a lot is, well, if I get so efficient, what am I going to do with my staff? And this is the one I like to think. I mean, we're not in business to necessarily stagnate. So I like to say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this next year, we're going to grow 20% faster than we did last year, and we're going to add no more employees. How are we going to do that? There's only one answer. We got to have great technology. We got to swap out the people if they need to be swapped, and we have to have a fantastic process. And doesn't happen overnight, but it's something that you can do in a 1-year type period if you're committed to this idea. And by the way, this is exactly what I did in Fully Managed to take our bottom line from 0 to 22%. And I can tell you it's a lot more fun running a business that's doing $10 million a year at 22% profit than a company that's doing $3 million at 0% profit. It's a lot more fun. So let's talk about the kind of the value and how you position making positive change to process and documentation internally. Biggest things: onboarding of new employees, the ability to bring somebody in. This is a very interesting factor. If you were to think to yourself, how long does it take me to bring a new technician into the business and have them be fully productive? And if that number is months or even a year before they're sort of 80% effective, I challenge you to put a little bit of work into analyzing what is that costing you from a salary perspective and from an opportunity cost perspective. The obvious inner value is productivity, making your people more efficient, and as I mentioned, being able to take what is perceived as a source of frustration and annoyance and making a culture of documentation and a culture of process that people really value and becomes a part of the fabric of your company. Externally, the thing that often gets forgotten is that your customers get to experience your waste, and they talk about this in Lean a lot. So if you're not productive, I like to highlight, if you're doing work for a sales rep for at one of your clients and you're not being productive, they completely absorb that waste on their side. So something that should have taken half an hour takes an hour. Yes, it cost you money, but it may have cost them even more money. And I'll tell you, this is something they very much recognize. If they have a feeling of how something should go, and if it doesn't go that way, they're aware of it. Whether or not that's grounds for canceling an agreement with you or not, they're aware of it. So providing better customer service, providing compelling value in the ability to allow a customer of yours to share in the documentation, share in the process with you, iterate those processes. And of course, trust. That the hostage situation that was 10 years ago, very common. I've got all your documentation. I've got all your processes for your business in my head, and I'm not going to share them with you. If you leave me, you lose all that. We're seeing a change in that, where now people are saying, I'll give it all to you, and you're going to work with me because you value the partnership and you value working together. So quickly, and I'm going to be able to shortly get over to Len. Len, I'm sorry if I'm going to go maybe 2 or 3 minutes long. Hopefully that's okay. I want to just touch on what's happened and why was documentation such a problem, and why does everybody roll their eyes when they think of the word documentation? So what we figured out, and this is essentially our secret sauce and how we made IT Glue a success, is we recognize that there's 3 key overlapping areas of documentation. There is building blocks, and building blocks are the list of things that you need to be able to develop a process. So things like passwords, domain names, people, companies, sites, SSL certificates, components of documentation that are basically lists, something that you might build in Excel, for example, or put in a config item. Structural, often almost entirely missing from most IT practices, which is, think of structural as the blueprints. So if I'm going to step into a office tower and I'm an electrician, and there's no blueprints or no map of how that electrical is set up, how challenging is it for me to actually support that building and go do some electrical work? That's exactly what's happening in IT day in and day out, where a new IT person is looking at an environment that they have no understanding of, and it's sort of like this, it's Groundhog Day. They have to relearn the environment again and again and again, and every time you add a new person or you put a person with a new site, they've got to relearn that information. So if you can find a way to put the blueprints in a way that's very consistent and standardized, it means that you can throw a technician at a site he's never seen, and he can pick up and understand the lay of the land very quickly. And then last but not least, procedural, also known as knowledge base. So this is how do I do things? And this is something that people usually do in Word. By the way, structural, the blueprints is something that if you are doing it, you might be doing it in Visio. As an example, I'll use the Word equivalents or the Office equivalents. Procedural, knowledge base. This is something how do I do this? Steps 1 through 10 with screenshots. So if you think of all these things, and then you start realizing, if you ask yourself, where do these pieces live? And you'll start realizing what we realize, which is these are all in different systems, and they're all in different brains, and a lot of times it's straight up not documented in any way. So of course, when you can overlay these things in a single system, whether that's, if it works for you with the Microsoft Office suite, then we encourage you to use that. We think we've got a solution that allows all those 3 areas to be covered in one single web-based platform. Quickly talk about our integration. IT Glue, obviously I haven't given a demo of IT Glue today, and I'm not planning on doing that. If you do have questions on IT Glue, there'll be an opportunity to follow up with us after. We'll give you a link shortly to if you're interested in having a further conversation, we'll connect you up. But I want to talk about the importance of the integration between Autotask and Autotask AEM and IT Glue. So one of the biggest pieces around documentation is the automation, the ability to take information that's already being created and automated through AEM or Autotask, pull it in and create documentation around that stuff. So if I'm going to document something like virtualization or backup or line of business apps, it's very, very important that I have building blocks for that information. So through our integration, we pull that information into IT Glue, make it very easy, continuously update that stuff so that you can create the documentation on the fly. So in a nutshell, here's the few things that we do. Knowledge management is probably the biggest bucket. So if we're going to use kind of ITIL type terms, knowledge management, standard operating procedures, knowledge base articles, call it a configuration database enhancer, because obviously Autotask has some of that functionality, but we build on top of that. Asset management, same sort of thing. Be able to create relationships between all these things so that if someone's going to reboot a server, they know what the impact will be on the rest of the systems on the network. Create a lot of security and version control around a lot of the assets. So, if someone's looking at a password, it looks like John changed that password last week. Show me what that password used to look like, that kind of thing, all built in. And then, of course, the automation thing, which is continuing to build, and we're integrating to more and more systems to allow you to pull information into IT Glue and automate the building of that documentation so that you don't have to do it manually. Oops, pardon me. There we go. So just quickly touch on the Autotask partnership in general. A very good percentage of IT Glue's customers are Autotask customers, and I can say that on the AEM side, tremendous uptick in our customers that are using AEM. So we're very excited about the partnership. We have a very complementary solution. We have, from an integration perspective, right now we're connected with Autotask and, as I said, Autotask AEM. The AEM integration is fantastic. We get so much good feedback around the ability for someone to look at a piece of documentation and see how much disk space is available on this server. It's tremendous to be able to see that when you're building documentation. Here's a screenshot of, it's hard to see, so we're going to leave it at, we'll give you some more info on Autotask BSA integration later. I didn't want to focus too much on product today. And as I said, the Autotask AEM integration, where you can just sort of faintly see here what's going on with real-time access to that asset from IT Glue in Autotask. So we're very excited. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys today, and we will have some questions at the end. We'll leave that for the end. The one thing I wanted to highlight here, if you would like a copy of these slides, we can offer it to you as a PDF. So if you'd like to grab those or you'd like to connect with us, itglue.com/webinar, and we'll also send you an ebook on this process piece and how it can drive profit for your business. So thank you. I went a couple minutes over. Hope that's okay, and I will hand it back over to Rebecca.
Thank you very much indeed, Chris. Some really interesting stats in that webinar. I mean, I was pretty staggered by some of the stats you came out with right at the beginning. Be interesting to hear from the attendees who are taking part in the webinar whether they're finding the same kind of operational inefficiencies. So yeah, if you have any comments or questions about that, we'd really like to hear from you. Just type your questions in the Q&A box and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. So thanks very much, Chris. Really informative. Don't worry about running over. We don't worry about that when the content is informative and useful. So hand over to Len, our SVP of Channel Development for Autotask, and he's going to take us through how Autotask Unified Platform helps you become more efficient and avoid the chaos. Len, did you come up with that title?
No, I thought maybe you or Stacy did, but it certainly ties to Chris's content, so I think it works. So
absolutely.
Thanks, Chris,
I'll let you take it away then.
All righty. I'm looking forward to getting the ball myself. So yeah, Chris, thanks for that great content and giving us this title, because I don't know what I would have called this section if Stacy or Rebecca didn't do this title here. So in any event, Len DiCostanzo here, SVP Channel Development. Had a few titles here at Autotask, so many of you who may know me will see that's a newer title here, as we're really focused on helping our customers, helping the community in general really become more efficient and avoid the chaos. I mean, it's really just rides right along what Chris shared with you, because again, it is about reducing your cost and certainly adding to your profitability. So before I get rolling, I just want to highlight a couple of stats here. We put out a survey every year, metrics that matter. And the focus, seemed to come back all around endpoint management. And again, as you document your infrastructures that you're supporting, your client networks, you are pretty much gathering information on every endpoint and the information on that endpoint. So it stands to reason that the survey results would come back pointing to endpoint management as the #1 revenue driver in 2016, because there's a lot of revenue to be made around endpoints, from deploying software on those endpoints, agents for various pieces of software, and per IT Glue, gathering that info and producing great reports that you can act on. Second stat here, very interesting, but it's certainly something you can understand. The #1 client security concern is around endpoints. Typically, those endpoints are used by users in some way, shape, or form, and compromising those endpoints can certainly compromise the entire network, as well as the relationship of the IT service provider supporting that account. And 55% of our more than 1,100 respondents to the survey said they see continued significant growth in endpoints that they manage. And that's good, because that means you're getting your fair share, because Gartner says over 26 billion endpoints will be in use globally by 2020. So all these stats really point to the fact you do have to be organized and structured in how you're managing your endpoints. And of course, if you deliver better endpoint management, you're going to thrive. And a lot of things going on around endpoint management, from actually, buying and deploying the right endpoints to then supporting and managing them and continuing to evolve, so you're staying ahead of threats and things like that. So what I want to chat a little bit about is Autotask, PSA, endpoint management, really the linchpin of our unified platform, and really the only unified PSA and RMM that helps you become more efficient, reduce costs, and increase profitability. And again, right around what Chris was talking about, it does come down to efficiency. And we look to do that by unifying the people, process, and data that you're out there managing and supporting. And that's where Autotask PSA comes into play. And if you really look at process, it extends across the entire business. And we like to say we help you generate revenue across 4 critical stages that you execute in your business and look to secure clients for life. And it starts with that initial sales process, where you're looking to generate some new revenue, whether it's a new logo client or your existing business. And that's where Autotask CRM gives you that opportunity to track accounts, contact information, build opportunities, track your pipeline. And then, of course, as you win that solution, you need to win that project, you need to implement that solution. That's where our project management capabilities come into play, giving you the chance to work from template projects, so you're real efficient in kicking off new projects. And as you implement that solution, tracking your phases and contacts, phases and tasks, tracking your time and expense, and then getting that invoice on the street pretty efficiently. And that's really that second critical stage. The first one being you got to win the project. Second, you got to implement that project, because typically you're bidding on a project. Even if it's a managed service engagement, you have to go out, remediate that environment, like Chris said, and get it up into your standards. So you're doing a remediation engagement even before you deliver managed services. If you do a great job on that project, you come on in and deliver your managed service and support. That's where Autotask Service Desk comes into play, and all the tools built into that service desk really gives you that opportunity to get into that 4th critical stage, where you are that trusted advisor. You become that IT department, or as I like to call it, the business technology department for your clients. And it all starts over again as you execute your monthly operational review meetings, your quarterly business reviews, and you're proposing new work. You then go back into that consulting stage and look to win new business as you're in that client over and over. And that mission-critical data flow across those key areas, those key critical stages of developing that client for life, all in one spot inside of Autotask, your single repository of data. And as Chris mentioned, a very nice integration, almost bordering on unification with IT Glue, across Autotask and endpoint management. We have over 140 integrations into Autotask. Again, looking to simplify your management of your client environments. And it's not just about PSA, it is about those endpoints, and that's where Autotask endpoint management comes into play. It's not integrated with our PSA, it is our PSA, and really the linchpin of our unified platform strategy. And here's where you're going out, collecting that data on those devices, mingling it with IT Glue and the great documentation solutions Chris mentioned. Very nice integration, again, bordering on unification, and surely we'll continue to develop that as you go out, audit your endpoints, collect that data, and then begin to deliver managed services to those endpoints, including some monitoring, self-healing capability, again, being more efficient, using less resources, as again, just following on what Chris said, where you're reducing headcount or perhaps keeping the same headcount, or even if you're growing headcount because you have more profitability, you're able to build new pieces of the business. But once you monitor, you self-heal, and if you monitor an endpoint, something's up, getting that ticket into the Autotask service desk, and of course being able to work that ticket and report on it. So again, Autotask endpoint management, Autotask PSA, really creating that unified platform environment, giving you that single pane of glass where you can customize dashboards by role or by area of the business. Here you see what I like to call the unified platform dashboard, showing that entire business. If you're the owner looking at invoices that perhaps are ready to be posted, or invoicing and billings that have been posted already, looking at your most profitable accounts, opportunities this month, again, all on one dashboard. Here you can see mingling in some of that endpoint management data, how many devices you're managing by type, new devices waiting to be jumped onto a contract, and these are some new assets discovered at your client location, again, making sure that you're putting those devices on a contract. So again, the combination, the unification of data from endpoint management and PSA, really giving you that single pane of glass view into the business. And you don't have to be an owner. You could be, as I mentioned, dashboards based on your role in the company. And here you see a sales manager, perhaps even a sales rep dashboard, and you can see opportunities in your pipeline. What does your funnel look like? And maybe you have one salesperson, maybe the owner's the salesperson, or maybe you have 10 salespeople. Doesn't really matter. You can create custom dashboards showing whatever you want. Here's opportunities that are going to close by territory, your top 5 reps. Again, great widgets. You get, I believe, over 50 customizable widgets when you buy Autotask, and you put it in your business, customize it, tweak it, and then share those dashboards out across the company. Here you got a unified dashboard for easy analytics. Again, taking all of that info from endpoint management, those endpoints that now you have documented with IT Glue, but now you can go out and generate new revenue, warranty expiration, devices that are coming out of warranty. Maybe you still got some Windows XP devices out there. Maybe you got some memory issues or even disk space issues. All of this leading to upsell opportunity, and that's where unified becomes more efficient. Here you see it just showed you how you can run the business from those unified dashboards and execute your role better and take those processes and automate and optimize those processes that end up reducing your overhead. And we are seeing more than a billable hour per day being saved due to the unified platform, and of course, that ticket being the central point where you guys are typically working, and techs can do most of the work from that ticket, and of course putting that self-healing capability based on scripting with endpoint management really helps you heal devices that are in trouble, and doing it without a body and then showing it up in your dashboards. And again, just always like to highlight efficiency and profitability, discovering assets that perhaps maybe been added by your client, even though you don't want them to, but now as devices get added to that network, you're going to know you're going to be able to add them onto contracts, and you'll never really service a device that's not under contract again. So we like to talk about helping you unify from beginning to endpoint. It's not, again, just about PSA and endpoint management. We know what you're going to do out there. You want to grab as much business as you can. So we've got our new product, Autotask Endpoint Backup, out there to help you either get new business or perhaps just add it into your existing managed service bundle and going out there and back up endpoints using endpoint management and your IT glue documentation. I'm sure you're going to find that your end clients, even though you're telling them to put their data on the network, on the server, they're putting stuff on those local drives. They're using My Documents. Here you can go on out, and we have decommoditized this commodity solution, endpoint backup, using AEB, and where you using AEM, you can actually deploy these backup agents very seamlessly, designate files and folders to back up from a remote implementation standpoint, and again, not have to visit any desktops, yet immediately back up those endpoints and protect that data. Typically, maybe C-level guys are not backing up, guys and gals are not putting their data on the server because they want to be overprotective of it. Now, they will never lose a file again. They could lose that laptop, and you have that nice, easy backup, tightly unified into the PSA AEM unified platform stack, and of course, recovering from ransomware attacks. We know some rampant viruses out there now, and use endpoint backup to make it a reality that you can recover really quickly from any type of security or virus that comes into your client's location, despite your hours of prevention. Here again, another solution from beginning to endpoint here, Autotask Workplace, our enterprise-grade file sync and share solution. If backup is not enough, if you really don't want to go out and just restore files, backing them up, put them in the cloud with Autotask Workplace, all your data on your local drive, on your server, synced into the cloud, and of course on an individual basis, now your data is protected. You can get it from any mobile device from anywhere as long as you have an internet connection. And even without an internet connection, you can access your data. But once that data is in the cloud, you actually are backed up and you never really have to restore because it's always there for you to access. On top of that, share it out with your peers, with third parties, in a secure fashion, and that's where file sync and share comes into play, increasing collaboration, and really it's about security and taking control of your clients' environments. And this is actually a linchpin of our Autotask partner program, Autotask Workplace. We have a great set of content and collateral around endpoint backup and file sync and share, a really robust partner program to help you put these products, these solutions into your client environments, increase your MRR, your monthly recurring revenue. So take advantage of the unified platform and how we take cost out of your business model by improving and automating the process of not only discovering the opportunity in your client base, but also rolling out the solution and then monitoring those solutions that they are in fact doing what they said. So a real nice way to generate revenue and make your business efficient. And here you can see some of the sounds of unification out there. Being able to deploy 4,000 endpoints in a single day, pretty big, from Richard Thompson, a sales director over at Central, one of our great clients out in the UK. And here you see Mika Thor talking about how he's going to save technicians more than 20 hours a month due to the Autotask unified platform. And it's automated, and the enhancement to the environment, to the customer experience is going to increase retention and grow profitably. So that's a little bit about Autotask. We are simple, scalable, and SaaS. We've got clients with 500 endpoints, 250 endpoints under management, on up to 20, 30,000 plus endpoints, all on the same system. We are 100% cloud, born in the cloud. We certainly know we've got competition out there, and they talk cloud, but they were not born in the cloud. We are, and we know we need to be there all the time for you. We warrant 3 nines uptime in our contract, and we have 4 nines uptime, I believe 7 of our last 8 years. So a really efficient way for you to grow your business, manage your business, certainly reduce costs and increase profitability. So it's time to unify. Take a look at Autotask PSA. If you don't have it, if you are a PSA customer, look to expand how you work with Autotask. Bring in endpoint management. Get that unified platform in place. Take a look at Autotask Workplace and endpoint backup, and really will definitely tie in with IT Glue and get you more efficient and more profitable. So call your account manager. We'll complete the survey at the end of the webinar. Visit our website, and take advantage of the offerings we have. So, hey, back to you, Rebecca. Thanks for your time, and I always like to congratulate folks for taking time out of their day to jump in and learn and work on the business, and we'll talk again.
Thanks, Len, and just want to say thank you to you for taking time out of your